Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's me, KT, and this month on my channel, Simple Living with KT, we're going to explore emergency funds. In this video, I'm going to talk about what emergency funds are and give ideas about how to approach them in your budget depending on where you are in your financial journey. So first, what is an emergency fund? An emergency fund is a stash of money that you have put aside in an account in case of an emergency. This money that you put off to the side is not for when you see a really nice pair of shoes, or if you realize that the PS5 is coming out and you did not save for it. That is not what an emergency fund is for, even though you might feel like it's an emergency. It can be hard to avoid these temptations, and that's why I recommend putting that money in an account that is outside of your normal checking account that you use for day-to-day purchases. When it comes to an emergency fund, you'll often hear that you should have 3 to 6 months saved up for an emergency. You'll also perhaps hear that perhaps you should only have $1,000 for an emergency. And I'm going to go into more details about that a little later in the video. Just keep that in mind while we move on here. Now that we know what an emergency fund is not used for, let's look at the types of categories that most people will encounter at one point or another where you might see yourself dipping into your emergency fund. And while we're going through these situations, certainly let me know if you have experienced one of these emergencies before you had your emergency fund in place and what it felt like after you had your emergency fund in place. The first situation is for a total income replacement. It's 2020, so anything can happen. We've had job losses due to pandemics. There's also just regular job loss, or perhaps your job is no longer in demand and your hours get cut. In these situations, that's really where many people find themselves wishing they had some type of emergency fund in place. Another situation that will come up pretty often is maintenance. If you own your own home or if you have a car, those are generally larger purchases that most people make, and they come with maintenance costs. You may already be familiar with the standard maintenance cost for your car, where you need an oil change or perhaps filters for your home. When it comes more to something you're digging into your emergency fund for, it'd probably be something more unexpected, like a leak in your roof or a very random flat tire or engine issue. But how do you deal with these type of maintenance issues as they come up? That is what I want to dive a little deeper into. To me, that depends on where you are in your financial journey. You could choose to have a separate line item in your budget every single month that puts money away for your house, and another line item that puts away money for your car, and another line item that puts away money for a different type of maintenance item, depending on what you have in your life. However, if you are someone who's in debt, having all of that money sitting in your account when it could be going to a credit card or just a high interest personal loan may be better for you in the long run, so that you can free up that cash flow into your pocket every month. The next tier is health bills, and I'm going to take more time talking about this because it is something that really hits home for me. When you buy insurance, you still have co-pays and co-insurance that you're responsible for if you go to the doctor or you need to go to the hospital. Because I feel like the different deductibles and high deductible health plans that are being offered today, is not something that's really being spoken about for the average person, I'm going to take more time to talk about the different aspects in a health insurance plan and how that affects your monthly budget and possibly your emergency fund. The most common cost that you should be familiar with health insurance is your monthly premium. That's what you're paying every month, whether you go to the doctor or do not. That is just for the privilege of having health insurance. Next, let's talk about deductibles. Many times I'm noticing that employers are offering high deductible health plans, and they promote this as a really beneficial item because you're able to get a health savings account that has really good tax benefits. This is very true, and as I get older, I see myself leaning more towards having access to that health savings account more and more often. The issue here is that many times people sign up for this high deductible health plan and they don't quite understand why when they went to the doctor they were paying $185 instead of what you saw for the doctor's visits of $30 or 30%. And for the most part that happens because you have not reached your deductible. If you have a deductible on your plan, you have to pay the full cost of that deductible before your health plan starts kicking in and helping you with health expenses. I will make a note here that most, I believe all plans actually, have to cover some preventative services like certain tests and your annual wellness visit. For women, there's a women's wellness checkup that is included every year. Let's walk through a scenario where you are in the kitchen and you experience a really bad burn. And so you have to go to the emergency room. The full cost to go to the emergency room to see a doctor there in the middle of the night may be $300. Your health insurance has negotiated a rate where if you have to go to the emergency room, it is $100 after the deductible. It's the beginning of the year and you've never gone to the doctor this year, and so you have not reached your deductible. The deductible in this situation, let's just say it's $1,000. You go to the emergency room and you think you're paying $100 because you did not realize a little asterisk next to the $100 for the ER visit, which means that it is subject to the deductible. So you go to the ER and when you check out, they say $300 please, and you're racking your mind about why you're paying so much more than you thought you were going to. This happens to people every single day when it comes to health insurance. Many times you'll see these plans being offered as the low-cost option with great tax benefits, and people choose them because you're paying less every single month rather than getting a regular HMO or PPO plan. And for myself, if you are not to the point where you can have the full 3 to 6 months of expenses set aside for your emergency fund, or at the minimum enough to cover what your deductible is on your health insurance or your car insurance for that matter, you should get a plan with a lower deductible. So then if something happens, you're not added to the statistic of all the Americans that are dealing with health insurance debt. This is a good point to once again mention the preventative care that's covered. Many times it is for $0, and that's the way that you get around paying the deductible for very limited services on health plans that have a deductible. But here's the thing, just because a few services are $0, to me, that's not a good reason to gamble on whether or not you're going to be in debt. You could literally be one hospital bill away from going into debt for years. I explain all this to illustrate just how easy it can be to go for the cheaper option for health insurance when you may be risking or honestly gambling paying more in the future if something came up. If you cannot save the full cost of the deductible, it may be more advantageous to you to go ahead and perhaps pay a little bit more a month, depending on, just how much more it is, but paying a little bit more per month and have that added really ease that if something comes up, your bills are going to be less. So now that we've talked about the different types of situations that may come up where you may need to find yourself going into your emergency fund, let's talk about where you may be in your journey and how much you should really make sure that you have saved up. If you're just starting your personal finance journey and are still in debt, I recommend starting with that starter emergency fund. I'm going to use a different video to go more in depth about why I recommend the 1,000 emergency fund to start. In short, with so many Americans not able to handle a $400 emergency, having $1,000 already off to the side for yourself is a game changer. It's a moment to breathe in a chaotic situation. You can make your budget as simple and as complicated as you like, but for myself, I always recommend keeping it as simple as possible to start with. This way, you can create habits that you can stick to change your entire financial future. Thank you for checking out my YouTube channel, and be sure to like this video and subscribe if you found this information useful and to get notified when I post next. I'll see you in the next video, and remember to keep it simple.